This episode is sponsored by The Alcohol Experiment, a free 30-day challenge designed to interrupt your patterns, give you control, restore your health, and put you back in touch with the version of you who doesn't need alcohol to cope, relax, or enjoy life. More than 220,000 people have already tried The Alcohol Experiment for themselves and have seen improved sleep, increased happiness, reduced anxiety, and so much more. Join thousands in this inspiring, hopeful, and exciting program where you examine your beliefs and reconnect with the best version of you without ever feeling like you're missing out. Start today for free at alcoholexperiment.com. Hi, this is Annie Grace, and welcome to this Naked Mind podcast. And I am super excited to be here with Ryan O'Connell. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. So you have such a fascinating, interesting story, and I don't want to give away any of it because I want to hear it all out of your own mouth. So why don't you sort of back us up to the beginning where it all started for you?
Wow, fascinating. That's quite, that's a lot to live up to. When I think of drinking, I think of it as the world's least compelling Groundhog's Day, but I'll try as a storyteller. You know, I basically, I grew up in Ventura, California, which is like this little, small beach town that's like Laguna Beach, but with like sprinklings of meth. And, I remember growing up, my mom was an alcoholic and it happened pretty abruptly. Like my dad is a teetotaler, he doesn't drink. My mom had a normal relationship with alcohol, and then they divorced, and it was like overnight, like split. She just like became someone who drank a bottle of wine a night, which was very jarring for me, considering alcohol was just like not in our household. Like I remember like when I went to college, like people were like, "Oh my God, Thanksgiving with my family, everyone's gonna get so wasted," and I was like, I don't understand. I was like, my dad drinks Coca-Cola. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then my mom obviously is like a secret alcoholic and blah, blah, blah. So, growing up with that was pretty cray cray. It just like went from 0 to 180 really quickly. And she got sober when I was 20. And I'm thinking about like when I started to drink, which was very like teenage, whatever, shenanigans. And I remember kind of like being very take it or leave it with booze for like a long time. And in fact, I think that's the thing that kind of did a number on me, was that I drank normally from the ages of like 17 to like 30. I think it was like when I started to see a shift. And I think that kind of made me feel protected against addiction, because it was like, it's like I had my mom as a model, someone who had a really quick descent into alcoholism. I had episodes of A&E's intervention. I had like all these kind of things to point to that were like, ooh, alcoholism is, insidious and it's fast and, blah, blah, blah. And that just wasn't the case for me. Also, to like add another layer to the 7-layer dip, I was addicted to painkillers in my 20s, and like, oh my God, opiates. They're super fun, super like, oh my God, like there's nothing quite like them. And in fact, they make alcohol look embarrassing and like not chic. That was like very fast and furious. Like that was a love affair. That was like very vibrant, very immediate, very like immediately in quicksand vibes. And then alcohol was just a grower, not a shower. You know what I mean? And again, I think that kind of insulated me from ever being concerned about it, because my painkiller addiction was so obvious and so hard to kind of dispute that like everything else seemed really like in healthy bounds. And I quit painkillers when I was like 27. And now in retrospect, I feel like I just kind of transferred addictions, like I just, out one ear in the other.
And how did you quit? Just out of
Oh my God, in a really strange way. It's like I didn't go to rehab. I did go to NA. I did go to AA. I didn't really relate to the programs. And what happened was I was living in New York and I moved to LA and I got a job writing for TV. And it was it was really honestly a confluence of events of me moving to a different city and not having any drug contacts. Although I have cerebral palsy, and so like honestly, it doesn't take much for me to get pills. Like it's just like true, like knock knock, who's there? A doctor willing to give me pain meds. So like, but like it was great to like not have a drug dealer and to really have like this like kind of clean slate. And then when I got my job writing for TV, that had kind of been all that I've been working towards my entire life. So I really didn't want to screw that up. Like being high on opiates is like one thing if you're just a blogger writing about your feelings. It's another to be like in a comedy room, had to like pitch jokes, and like it's a more intense breakneck pace. And then this like sounds cheesy, but I like started this crazy thing called exercise. Now, like prior, my version of cardio was running to my drug dealer's house when he said he had Percocet, but like now I was like really treating my body with care and love and attention. And my relationship with my body was always Herbie fully loaded, because like being disabled, I always saw it as like what it couldn't do. And exercise helped me reframe that and instead look at my body as this sort of amazing, incredible, powerful thing that could do so much more than I ever thought was possible. So I feel like those couple things of a job, a new place to live, and me getting really into exercise and treating my body well was sort of like kind of it for me. And I remember like a few times in Los Angeles, like literally Vicodin would like fall into my lap, like either a friend would have some or whatever, and I would take it. And it was like very much like The Thrill Is Gone by Chet Baker. Like it just like didn't feel the same. Like it really was just like it hit the high hit differently. I didn't like the way it made me feel. I didn't like being out of my body. So I just stopped, which feels like, again, like very like not the narrative that we hear. But what I loved about your book was like this idea of spontaneous sobriety, although mine wasn't really spontaneous as much as it was kind of like this dull fading out. But like it's definitely something you don't really hear about. Do you know what I mean? You either hear about rehab or, you know, cold turkey or whatever. And mine was just a slow dissolve. And then
is it fair to say that you, in some ways, found things you cared about more?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I just started to invest in my life in a really tangible way. I think like when I was in my 20s, I just really had this urge to self-destruct. But it's hilarious because I'm like a true type A Virgo from hell. So like I was so, oh great, oh my god, that tracks TBH. Like only a fucking Virgo could write The Snake in Mine. And like be like, I'm gonna do some research, I'm gonna find some data. Like honestly, like it's literally the most peak Virgo thing you've ever fucking done. I'm obsessed. It's like truly the language of being a Virgo. And it's like I'm really bad at being an addict. Like I'm really bad at being addicted to things, because like I'm so high functioning and so driven and so ambitious that like I remember I was like writing a novel while being on painkillers, and I was doing like college speaking tours, and like my career was truly on fire, and I was just like casually on Percocet for all of it. But I honestly never, like nothing ever got compromised. Like my work was always turned in on time. And I think that's like also like this feeling of rock bottom was very elusive to me, because I knew myself and I knew I would never get to a place where like truly bridges were being burned. And like that also made it so much harder to quit, because it became more of like the rock bottom wasn't about like tangible things being compromised. It was more of like my soul being eroded and like me also being like so exhausted by keeping up everything and keeping up this double life and all that stuff. Being high functioning is sort of a troll in a weird way, because you can really keep juggling things for a very long time. And then so when I quit painkillers really kind of officially, you know, the drinking kind of turned a little bit. Like it honestly all started when I started drinking at home. I became obsessed. So I was drinking for like 13 years, and like it always bothered me that I didn't ever really know what I liked, or I'd always forget, you know what I mean? And it'd be like, I should really, like, typical Virgo, by the way, I should really like investigate this and like see like what I like and like see what's out there and like go explore and like go see like what kind of the wine scene is like and da 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 da. And I got really into natural wine, pause for laughs, which is like this whole like new movement of like, you know, wine with no added sulfites. And people are like, you drink it and you don't get hungover. It's like, lol, that's definitely not true. But it's this obsession with it. The natural wine movement is fascinating because it's this obsession with like purity and being of the earth, but it's like, babe, it's wine. Like, let's not get it twisted. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, it makes you somehow feel better about the choices that you're making. And like, it creates this illusion of purity, and like it's just odd. Like, but I was really into it, and I think that was sort of my gateway, because I started buying a bunch of wine and getting really into it, and it became like a real hobby of mine. Like, and I think like in retrospect, I can admit that like that hobby was acting as a mask for what was developing to be a real problem. And I got really into like drinking at home. That was the term. Like drinking at home was like, once I started doing that, it was like, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, babe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was very much like, I mean, it's like if you looked at like a film dissolve of all my drinking, it would just be like me like literally watching Real Housewives and then like listening to Mazzy Star in my bedroom and like spilling red wine on my acne white t-shirt. Like it's not like it's like again the least compelling Groundhog's Day. You know what I mean? Like no cars were crashed, no friendships were compromised. But it was just me steadily, you know, I think like my boyfriend and I would drink like a bottle, you know, with dinner, and that felt very mature and sophisticated and adult, and like this is how we drink now because we're in our 30s. And then, you know, that would slowly kind of turn into a bottle of wine a night. And then just like I realized with like intermittent clarity that like I was walking around with like a mid-grade hangover basically for the last 3 to 4 years. Like, and I was learning, I knew how to deal with it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just like, I understood. I mean, it was annoying and like painful and like frustrating to have to like kind of climb this mountain of a hangover every single day to get to do what I needed to do. But I really, really got used to it and was like learned how to function with it. But I mean, I related to your book so much because it just, it was so insidious and it was so slow. And it was like all of a sudden I just became a person that was always going to drink. And then of course you like see things turn a little bit where like now you're drinking when you don't even want to drink because you're hungover, and now you're just drinking because you know it'll make you feel better. And then like so much was happening. I feel like I hope I don't fuck up the timeline or I'm telling this in a concise way, but like,
Oh, no, it's great.
okay, good, okay. So basically, like, you know, I did dry January a few times, and I did that successfully because I'm a Virgo, Annie. And I don't fuck around. And when I say I'm gonna do something, I fucking do it. Yep, ever the taskmaster. So you know, that also gave me the illusion of control and of progress. And of course, I would celebrate doing dry January by getting positively wasted on February 1st. That was not so that seemingly was kind of lost on me. I was like, wait, I don't understand. And then I was shooting season 2 of my TV show, and I remember I had these rules that like season 1 we shot, and I remember I think I drank probably 2 glasses of wine a night, which I would not get hungover, and I was able to film and be fine. And then when we were doing the writer's room for season 2, I kind of got it down to a science where I was able to have, this is like speaks to my tolerance. You're probably gonna be like, I would be wasted. Actually, you'd understand. But basically, I could have like a martini, maybe even 2, and then like 1 glass of wine, and then I could be like kind of fine the next day at work. So I actually like never really was hungover like at work, and that was a big point of pride for me. And then we filmed, and my rule was that I would not drink during the week, and I would only drink Fridays and Saturdays, so I would never be hungover on set, which I kept my promise. But I remember one night we were shooting like in Woodland Hills, which is so fucking out there for all the LA heads out there. It's like deep, deep valley. And we were shooting late, like later than we thought. And oh, this is another thing. This is LOL. So like finally I was like, I can't have alcohol in the house. I was like, we can't do this anymore. Like, that's gonna really help curb my drinking because it's crazy. And then literally, I mean, I'm a restaurant bitch, so it's like not much of a surprise, but like I literally just ate out for dinner like every single night. And then had like literally, I was like,
here's a loophole.
Totally. It was like literally
rule.
yeah, totally. I was like fucking Nancy and Drew on the case, trying to break the case of how to drink while not having any alcohol at home. And the answer was just go out to eat every night. And then I would have like these like glamorous, sad dinners, but like by myself at like a bar after writing, and you know, had my martinis and like check my phone. And it was just like, and then I would see like other like clear like alcoholics and be like, that's sad. Anyways, I'll have another one, like with no kind of awareness, you know. Anyway, so then you know, time was kind of ticking, and I was getting really nervous because I didn't have any alcohol at home. That was a rule that I had kept. We had not had alcohol in our house for a year, which meant that I had to go to a bar. And I remember like really truly having anxiety over whether or not we'd finish in time. And it was also a really intense emotional scene that I had to film. And I just remember like filming it, like perfectly so that we could finish. Like I remember like getting so focused and like delivering a really good take. So I just knew we'd be done with my coverage and I could go home. Very relatable. As anyone who's shooting a TV show while having a alcohol problem can relate. Am I right? Um, and then I remember like hightailing it to this bar and drinking 3 martinis back to back, like at like 1:15, and even taking a photo of the martini to make it be like, oh my god, like post work break, like I deserve, whatever bullshit that we do as a society, like boom, um, and then I just remember thinking like, wow, like what was the point of any of this? Like I just like kind of drugged myself. That's how it felt like with drinking, because like my brain, as I'm sure you can tell, goes like 40,000 miles per hour. And like, oh, for me, and I think with painkillers too, it was the same thing where it was like anesthesia. Like it was like I truly was tranquilizer darting myself to calm down. And that's sort of what I was doing. I became very aware, like drunk on the Uber ride home from this night, being like, oh, I just like low key drugged myself to like go to sleep. And also, like, yes, I have not drank 5 nights a week, and that's great. But also, I've been counting down the days for me to do this. So, like, who's in control of who, honey? Like, Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Anyway, smash cut, the pandemic shuts down production. And I'm at home drinking a lot, as I see on Instagram, quarantinis, Ina Garten making a weird vodka slushy at 11 a.m. because that's ha 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 normal. Okay. Like, okay, honey, sure. And everyone's really just at home. They're drinking a lot, and it's been normalized, and we make light of it. But I knew I was drinking out of pain and anxiety and frustration. And I think the pandemic, in a way, I'm grateful for it because it expedited the process with my drinking. And it really put the fast forward button on it, because I was just, now that with my show shut down, I just had it was almost a relief. Like, I feel like when you are really ambitious and you also have a problem with alcohol or drugs, the two of them are competing for your attention. They're like little spoiled brats that are just like, look at me, look at me. And like, I remember so vividly like becoming resentful of like my commitments to my career, which like, again, like I was so lucky to have. Like, I remember Netflix wanted me to like get up at 7 a.m. to do this fucking, I don't forget what it was. And it was during the pandemic, and it was gonna just be a slog. And I remember thinking, oh my God, well, I'm gonna have to like, not drink that much that night, the night before, and that's gonna be really annoying. And of course my brain is like, lol, you're still going to drink that much, and like you're just going to be hungover, and it's just not going to be a fun day. But I remember truly growing resentful of the commitments that I had, which was bone chilling, because like I have always been ambitious. My career is my baby, and I'm really proud of the work that I'm able to do. And it was actually crazy that I was like favoring alcohol in this situation. So we're in the pandemic, I'm drinking a ton, and it's like not even working anymore, to be honest. Like, I think like I could not go past a bottle of wine. I mean, that's kind of a lie, because I think we'd have like a cocktail and then I would transition to a bottle of wine. But like, it got to a point where I couldn't even get drunk anymore. Like, I would not get drunk. Like, it was just not even working. And then I would wake up middle of the night hungover, as if I did get wasted, but I didn't. And I think that was really, really frustrating for me, and also a telltale sign that like I was developing a real physical dependency on it. Like, I think before it was largely emotional, and then it became physical. And then like in the pandemic, it was truly physical, because I remember I'd go on like my Hillary Clinton wandering the woods post-election lost walks, and like I would just be like, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. And then like, 5 p.m. would hit my walks. And I remember I would just like be paralyzed with the thought of not drinking, and then invariably order some alcohol from like DoorDash or Postmates or whatever. And that was crazy, because I was.
I just lost your sound, Ryan.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're back.
Okay,
Right.
sorry.
So you ended on that was crazy.
That was crazy, because it was just like I openly did not want to do these things. Like and I knew it, and I felt so powerless. I felt like alcohol's grip on me was tightening and tightening, and it felt crazy. Like, and also there was just nothing to hide behind in the pandemic. Like, it was very much like my problem in HD. You know what I mean? You couldn't point to like, I'm going out with friends, I'm doing this. It's like, no, babe, you're just drinking. Like, that's literally what you're doing. And you can't not drink every day, even though you have a horrible hangover every day. Also, my psoriasis was like unsoothed and like my skin was a fucking mess and I looked crazy. And like, I just knew that it was not chic. So then I remember I bought the Alan Carr book like 6 months earlier because Edith Zimmerman had written about it in the cut. You know, Edith, she interviewed you. Yeah. And I remember buying it being like, I'm not ready to read this yet, but hopefully one day I will. You know what I mean? I mean, look, on the real, I always knew I needed to be sober. Like I knew that this was the end. I really did. I didn't know how or when it was going to happen, but like in the last 6 months, like I knew that this couldn't last forever and that it was going to come to an end. But of course, you're always waiting for that moment, you know, because otherwise you're just betraying yourself over and over again. And you feel so, and this is really triggering for Virgo, you feel really disempowered and you feel not in control anymore, which is like truly put the troll in control. It just doesn't feel good. So then what happened is one night, so I had the book, and then one night I woke, it was like such an unremarkable night. It was a night that I drank a bottle of wine, didn't get drunk, and fell asleep, and then, you know, was thrust awake a few hours later with a hangover, as per usual, and making promises to myself that things were going to change and that it was not going to be this way anymore, and that tomorrow's the, you know, start of a new day, and blah blah blah. And I remember going on my phone to like read more about Edith Zimmerman's articles about, you know, sobriety and blah blah blah. And I had the Alan Carr book, still had not looked at it, but I read her interview with you, and I was like, okay, addicted, let's see. And then on Amazon, there's like a preview to your book, and it is you describing waking up in the middle of the night with a hangover, promising yourself that you're not going to do this again, blah, 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 blah. And the next day, doing the same thing all over again. And I was like, okay, truly drag me straight to hell, Annie. Like, literally, like, you have my fucking number. Okay. Like, okay, I feel so seen. I'm triggered. But it truly changed. I could not believe it. It was like you were really taking the words out of my mouth. What's so funny about like alcohol problems or drug problems is that I mean, at the end of the day, it's the same shit. It really is. It's the same shit, different story. But for some reason, you really do think you're unique or you're specific. And like your experience is, I'm sure, so many people's experience. And just reading it and having it mirror the own moment of me in bed at 3 a.m., I was like, okay, like you got me. So I bought your book. I read Alan Carr's book the next day, and like it cracked open my brain. I was obsessed. And then I read This Naked Mind immediately. I didn't read it like 2 chapters at a time, like you said, because when I read Alan Carr's thing, I was like, oh, this is it. Like, I was like, this is it. Like, he broke down alcohol in such a way that like, and then having like reading both back to back was so helpful because like I feel like yours was just like a lot more colloquial and like whatever, and you were really weaving your own personal experience into it, which was so mirrored mine. And like just the idea of like how alcohol works in the brain. But I remember you said something that really stuck out at me, and like truly I could never think of it any differently, was when you were like, remember the first time you drank alcohol and how disgusting it tasted. Like how literally you were like, blah! And then everyone's like, no, babe, it gets easier. Just like keep with it. And you're like, okay. And then like it does eventually. And you're like, lol. Like you're like, that first taste is like truly how alcohol tastes. And then your taste buds are like, well, this bitch isn't gonna change his habits anytime soon, so we got to adapt. And then you like learn to adapt. And it was like, oh my God, that is so true. I remember so vividly the first thing I ever drank, which was when I was 17 at a party. It was like this awful vodka thing and it tasted vile. And I remember thinking, oh my God, how does anyone do this? But then I remember like, you know, just being like, all right, well, whatever, it's what people do, let's go. And then also just like how normalized it is in our society. And it just like, it made me remember like Kathy Lee and Hoda drinking wine at 9 a.m., which is disturbia. Also, don't even get me into like the commodification of wine and the intersections of mom and, you know, whatever, and how gendered it's become, which is so zero dark 30 to me. And like, but like, imagine if it was like, you know, Kathy Lee and Hoda like taking a Percocet or like drinking vodka. Like, you'd be like, oh my God, this is so scary. Like, they need help because it's wine. It's like fun. It's like mom juice. And then it's like you go on Instagram and it's like people boomeranging with like their champagne glasses and like Sunday Funday. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, like we are all worshiping at the altar of booze. It is so sewn into the fabric of our lives in a way that like when you broke it down, you're like, it's about your conscious and your subconscious. And like there's a reason why your conscious mind is like, this is bad. I like don't want to do this anymore. And then your subconscious is like, wait, but like boomerangs, Kathy Lee and Hoda, Ina Garten, vodka slushy, dead to me, Christina Applegate, red wine. And you're like, oh yeah, I want to do that. That makes sense. Like it's like you have years of conditioning and you can't compete against that. You really can't immediately, like, because it's like in the DNA of our society. It is like we're taught from a very young age that we need alcohol for X, Y, and Z. Like I remember like I have one of my closest friends is really not a big drinker at all. And this summer she's single, it's post-pandemic, so she's like out in these streets again. And so she's like become a drinker for the summer just to like do it because that's like what you do. And like she doesn't even like, and she's gone back now to like how she used to drink, which is like nothing really at all because she just truly doesn't like it. But it's like she had to become kind of a drinker to become someone who like dates and goes out and does all these things. And I think that's just so disturbia. And like it made a lot of sense where like basically like your book helped me, again, this is my Virgo heroine, like take the power back and feel empowered rather than disempowered. And by the way, this is not okay, this is like where I'm going to go in controversial territory. Like AA has saved so many of my friends' lives and they've gotten sober and it's worked for so many. The reason why it didn't work for me when I used to go was like, okay, whatever. I don't mean to be a bitch. This is not like in disregard, like
no, it's your own journey.
Okay,
you
right.
should.
Yeah, I was like, honey, I'm trying to get like less focused on alcohol rather than like have it be a main focus like every day of my life. Like I don't want to take it one day at a time. I want to like not take any days. Like I want to just like be done. Like I don't, alcohol has taken up so much real estate in my brain that I would love, and like I would love to just not think about it. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like when you talk about the subconscious and the conch, like it really is like retraining a muscle. Like you have to like I remember, you know, when I read Alan Carr's book and your book back to back, I was like, I'm never going to drink again. And I was not scared of saying that. I feel like historically you're taught to like be like, well, I don't know. You're like, I remember some friends who I love and adore were like, you're riding I think it's called the pink wave or something like that.
Oh
like,
yeah. The pink cloud. Yeah.
And I remember being like, no, I'm not. I remember like in my, like, I didn't say that. I didn't say that because it's a touchy subject and I know everyone's journey is personal, but I remember being like, no, like, no, like I like my perspective has shifted irrevocably. I cannot look at alcohol the same way ever again. I mean, it got to a point where I need to like tone down because I truly feel like an anti-alcohol evangelist, which I know is not chic, but like the way that we talk about cigarettes and how like no one smokes anymore. And if they do, it's like, babe, are you okay? ... I feel like alcohol is sort of the same thing, except for it's so like sucking the D of capitalism that like we can't like fuse them apart. And because also people have come to rely on alcohol in such a psychotic way that like to opt out of it becomes triggering for them and becomes a mirror that they have to look through. I truly feel the one, I would say, a bummer part of all of this is like I feel like I have evolved past people like in certain ways where like I feel like I see I sound like a cult member or something. I'm like, I see clearly now. But it's like true though. Like I kind of see things for what they are. And by the way, I'm not saying like everyone should never drink, but like there is such a profound lack of critical thinking about drinking. And I would say people go to lengths to avoid that critical thinking because they're scared of it. You know what I mean? And I mean, so I celebrated a year like a month ago, sober. And I, again, like people again are always like, I went to New Orleans, they're like, oh, was it hard for you? And I'm like, hard how? Like, I don't know. Like, it's so interesting how like there's these narratives that people push on you about your own relationship. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, because I understand, by the way, like if you had told me 14 months ago that I would be saying these things, I'd be like, babe. I mean, I'd be like, thank God. I would be like, truly, thank God. Because I'm such a natural born skeptic. Like, I think that's also why your book related to me was like, honey, you came with facts. You came correct. You came with Virgo energy. And like, you were like, okay, here's the data, babe. Here's the data. That's my love language is data. So like, but I don't know how to tell people that like, it's not hard. And again, I feel bad saying that, because I don't want to dismiss people who it has been difficult for them. I don't want to minimize their pain. But it is weird that people seem to be triggered by my journey in a weird way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I
That's
get that a
but that's
lot.
the weird part. That's like the weird part, that like there's no rule. I mean, it's just like navigating that. And also like I think sometimes I feel like imposter syndrome with like AA people, where like I feel like a slight, like not overt, but there's like this slight kind of thing of like, well, like someone once like was like, well, people might call you like a dry drunk. And I'm like, I'm not, I don't know how to tell. I'm like, I'm not. I don't know. It's like weird. You know what I mean? But it's, of course you can't, if you actually even like defend yourself, you just sound insane and like you are a dry drunk. So you're kind of like, okay, babe, like love and light. Like, I don't know. Like, what can you say? Like, I know my truth. I know my journey. And like, it's sort of like, babe, read the book. I don't know what to tell you. Like, read the book. It clicked. Like, and also, by the way, like the book isn't a magic trick, because, I've had, my sister got sober a month after me because she read your book. Thank God, love. And talk about a family disease. And then my mom, who fell off a cliff during pandemic and like totally started using again, she is starting to read it now, which is really amazing. And she's fucking obsessed. So like, thank you for that, because I swear to God, if you can get my entire family sober, I'm like truly addicted. I'm gonna send you like an edible arrangement. But like, but like, I don't know. It's like weird, but it's also just like okay, like mocktails. This is like how stupid and radicalized I am. But like only like, by the way, I have no one to talk to about this besides my sister, because everyone has been either AA or still drinks, so like they just don't get it. But even like people are obsessed with like giving me mocktails or asking me for a mocktail. But because again, this is me being radicalized, I don't like support drinking culture. So I don't need to approximate a cocktail, because I don't need a cocktail. A cocktail is bogus. It's just a $20 drink masking the real taste of alcohol. Like, I don't need to do that. I did that for years. So like, I'm really good with sparkling water and lemon moment. But like, people are obsessed with driving this mocktail narrative. And I'm like, I'm not gonna need a mocktail. Like, mocktails are bogus. Like, I saw like Luann on Roni drinking like fake rosé, and I'm like, honey, you're like, that's not the way. Fake rosé is not the way, because you're still participating in drinking culture, and you're still putting alcohol on this pedestal. Like Edith Zimmerman said, this is like the most succinct way. Alcohol is a scam. And the sooner you realize that, like the better off you'll be. Like that sentence like crystallized with me in such a profound way. And like, that's why I'm like, I don't need to drink like a fucking fake Sex on the Beach. Like I would say, like, you know what I mean? I don't, because I just don't care, and I don't want to like support that in any meaningful way. And also like as a TV writer, like, and as a creator of TV shows, it's also made me feel really conscious of how I've participated in this like drinking narrative of like normalizing it, because it's like, it's hard as a creator, because like you don't want to like, you need to like reflect the world that you're in, but it's also like, and like you can't be some utopia, because that feels dishonest. But it's also like, I don't want to glamorize alcohol use in any way. In fact, I'm never mind, I can't even share this yet. Anyway, whatever. But like it's important to me that we like don't do that anymore. And it's as simple as like, I remember we went back and we finished special. I was 4 months sober, I think, and there was like a scene where like one of the characters was like drinking a lot to get through a family dinner, and there's this comedic thing where she like basically fills her wine up to the brim, and it's like, haha, it's something we've seen a million times. And I remember, I think because I was so busy show running and everything and starring and whatever, it like kind of fell through the cracks. And like, I remember like when we were filming it, I was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like that we're doing this. I don't like that she's like drink, and it's like funny that she's getting drunk at dinner. Like this character is obviously in pain and she's turning to alcohol, and I'm just turning it into this comedic runner that we've seen a million times before. A, it's not original, it's not interesting, but B, it contributes to this harmful idea of alcohol and it normalizes it. So in the future, I will be very mindful, I think, of my role in this, and I will do everything I can to not participate to the glamorization of alcohol because it's bullshit. It's a scam.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Can you tell us or tell everybody just a little bit, like give a little like professional bio, like your book, your show, all of the amazing things you're
Oh, sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Ryan O'Connell. People are like, okay. Did it a little backwards. And I created a show called Special on Netflix. Season 2 came out on May 20th. And it's based on my memoir that's called I'm Special and Other Lies We Tell Ourselves. Before that, I've written for other TV shows like Awkward and Will and Grace. And now I'm working on the Queer as Folk reboot. And I'm also working on a film adaptation of my novel, which by the way, your book is in my novel, Annie, Addicted. I know, honey, I'm giving you PR, babe. I'm fucking
I
spreading
saw
the
in
word.
People magazine. I was like,
Oh, honey, yes,
right?
of course, honey, spreading the gospel, spreading the fucking gospel. Yeah, I mean, and by the way, I'm telling everybody, and it's so interesting because I talked about how my sister read it and got sober. You know, I've had a few people read it and it hasn't been this kind of magic trick that they were expecting. And I think it's really important to talk about how the one thing that's frustrating that you can't do a how-to on is like, I was ready for a perspective shift. I was ready to believe in something else. I no longer believed in alcohol. I knew that what I thought it did to me, which was relieve anxiety and like it was actually doing the opposite. I was cognizant enough to be like, okay, this isn't working the way that I thought it was. So I was really ready to believe in something new. And I think that's the one thing that you need to get there a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? The book can be this perfect, like, launching off point to that. But if you're not ready and you're still believing in alcohol and like what it does for you, and it reminds me of like dry January when like I would, be at dinner and be like, there'd be like 5 minutes where I'd really want a glass of red wine, and then I would abstain, and then it would go away, and I feel so proud of myself. It's like this idea of willpower is like just not going to work because it's like you're still believing in that glass of red wine and what it will do for you. I think people have a hard time detaching from that. So it's like, it's interesting. It's like, to me, there needs to be two pieces working together. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I think people need to, like, readiness is the first thing that you need for change. There's not even, can't really mince that. And so I've heard all sorts of stories. Like somebody reads the book, they put it away for a year, and then they're like, oh, wait a second, and then they read again, or, different things. That readiness piece, you cannot underestimate it.
Well, I will tell you, anytime I talk about it, like in the press or on my Instagram or something like that, like the number of DMs I get is like, there's like shocking. Like, it's like, because it lends credence to this theory that I have. It's like, I truly think a lot of people are in these kind of problematic relationships with alcohol that don't fit this textbook narrative of addiction or alcoholism or whatever. It's more of this gray area. Again, like our thinking of drinking, I think exists really much in a binary. You either have a problem or you don't.
Yeah.
I love that I'm just spewing back rhetoric that you've already, it's like, you're like, yeah, babe, I wrote the book. But it's like, I think what prevented me from getting sober was that there is no language. There is no language for the in-between. And like, if you don't look, and also you look to this checking of the boxes and you hope that actually you don't fit that. Because if you don't check every box, well, then you're fine. Then you can feel okay about yourself. And then you can delude yourself into thinking everything's okay. And it's really frustrating because what I've learned and what I've always felt to be true is that a lot of people just have these relationships with alcohol that they want to change, but they don't quite know how to do it. Because I remember, like, I go to Provincetown every summer, and I remember like a legitimate fear that I had in getting sober, and this is so psychotic, would be like, how am I going to go to Provincetown and not drink frosé? Like, that is a real thought I had. And when I fucking got sober, one of my best friends who goes to Provincetown goes, what are you going to do in Provincetown? Like, when we all drink frosé? Like, that was a real thought he had. And I was like, it was like actually kind of validating, because I was like, it is psychotic to like prevent getting sober because you're wondering about frosé that you drink once a year. But like the fact that like my friend also mentioned it as like cause for concern is like truly like we're all mentally ill and like need help and like we're all it's just it's really interesting to me. But anyway, the response that I've gotten has really been like, wow, this is a real epidemic, I feel like, and like one that we're not really talking about. And I just feel really passionate about like kind of spreading the word. And like, I don't know, it's like I think a lot of people are suffering that don't have to suffer because there is another way. You know what I mean?
And it's so cool for someone like you in the spotlight to spread the word because your platform is such that it just reaches so many people. It's beautiful. It's amazing.
Well, I talked about it. I felt really like sketchy because I talked about like the day that I fucking read your book and was like, I'm getting sober. I mean, I could scream it from the mountaintops. And I was like, okay, but I'm gonna look psycho. And be like, I'm Ryan O'Connor on 1 day sober. And this is how I did it. People were like, bitch, you're fucking crazy. And so I like bravely waited till like October, which was literally like, I think I had 4 months sober, but I truly was like, I can't hold on to this information any longer. Like, I really do believe that this is going to change people's lives or could change one person's life. And like, if someone's going to drag me straight to hell for like literally talking about being brave, like for being like, hi, I'm 4 months sober. Like, then whatever, that's their journey. I don't fucking care how they perceive that. Like, but if this can like reach one person and change their life, then it's all worth it. I don't really care.
That's so awesome. I love that so much. So good. So let me ask you the question that I asked
Sure.
at the end, which is if you were going to go back to Ryan of a few years ago, who was, drinking at restaurants by himself, not really wanting booze in the house, but letting alcohol, like you said, take up so much mental real estate, and you were going to tell him about what life is like now, what would you say?
So much easier. It's just so much easier. I can't explain to you. I mean, I think I had this real narrative of myself that I was really anxious. I was a really anxious, stressed out person. And the story break that I had with drinking was that that was actually making me a stressed out, anxious person. And when you remove alcohol, everything becomes doable. I'm not going to say that I haven't been stressed. I'm stressed right now. I'm like literally drowning in work. I literally have not been like away from my desk in like 2 years. But like it is all doable. It's all feasible. Like with alcohol, everything became hard. Everything became something to triumph over. Like, oh, I need to get through this day. I have 10 meetings and I'm hungover, but like, oh, okay, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna sweat it out and like do this and get a latte and get some carbs and like get this train moving. And like it doesn't have to be that way. It can just be another day and like it can be a stressed out day. But like I remember someone just the other day was like, how do you release your stress? Like, how do you deal with your stress? Because like it doesn't go anywhere. And typically, you use alcohol. And I have to say to them, I'm like, I don't really ever feel that way anymore. That there's like a lever that I have to like release. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, not to say that, like, again, that I'm like Zen by any means. I'm still a crazy person who, like, again, is going 80 miles per hour and has a lot on their plate and makes things really busy and complicated for themselves. But it's like everything just now seems doable because I'm not dealing with a mid-grade hangover and I'm not doing this mental math of like equating how much I can drink or doing this or doing that or thinking about my alcohol consumption and doing whatever. Like there's just been so much bandwidth freed up in my brain. And I just don't feel this need to like, yeah, to have this giant release visa. Like, I don't know, I take a bath. Like, I don't know. It's like not, it just isn't that complicated. Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally, totally. And actually, like, it's so interesting because it's worth saying that we think that people drink to, overcome depression and anxiety and all this stuff. And in some cases that's somewhat true, but actually the scientific proof of alcohol is that anxiety that you're experiencing, that stressed out feeling, is really a symptom of withdrawing from the alcohol you drank previously. So it just gets worse and worse and worse. So you're always on this cycle. And the thing that's causing all the pain is the alcohol when we think it's the thing that's solving all the pain. And so like just even knowing and understanding that is just like, oh,
I know. I feel like I was just caught in like the least interesting washing machine. Like I literally was just like, here we go again. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like,
yes.
oh my God. And everything just had this kind of flat, blank quality to it towards the end. You know what I mean? It was just sort of like so not interesting. And I was so over it. You know what I mean? And again, like now my days have all kinds of different shapes. And like it feels really good to know that like I'm in control again, and that like the good, the bad, everything in my life, like I can take ownership over all of it. It's all because of me, for better or for worse. And I find that to be really empowering, to be in the driver's seat again. You know what I mean?
I love that so much. It's so great. Well, this has been awesome. I love how you talk. I think it's so fun.
Thank you. I
Do
mean,
not listen to this episode on 2X.
oh my God, lol. By the way, who does that? Those people need to seek help. Like any people on 2X, I'm like, I'm praying for you. Like, you need another book other than This Naked Mind, babe. This is like just the tip of the iceberg to me.
That's awesome. Well, this has just been great, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have you tried the alcohol experiment? Okay, if not, drop everything and go to thisnakedmind.com/experiment. This free 30-day challenge is designed to interrupt your patterns and put you back in touch with the best version of you. You remember it was that version of you that's living your most joyful life, the version that doesn't need alcohol to relax or to have a good time and is having more fun than ever. And again, this is a totally free challenge that will change everything for you. So learn more and join me 100% free at thisnakedmind.com/experiment. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, as it truly helps the message reach somebody who might need to hear it today.